Alright friends, so let us start with the next session, which is on concept maps. Let's look at the slides. In this session we are going to talk about what is a concept map, what are the types of concept maps, what are the advantages of drawing concept maps, where are concept maps actually being used, and we'll also do a comparison of brainstorming with concept maps. So let's first understand what is a concept map. We'll go to the next slide. A concept map is a diagrammatic representation used to indicate relationships between concepts, entities and pieces of information. So concept map is a visual. Let me draw the visual for you. Let's say I have got concept 1 and I have got concept 2. Now I represent the concepts in circles and then I join the concepts if they are related. If let's say there are more concepts related to concept 1, I would probably show them in a number of circles connected to concept 1. If there are more concepts related to concept 2, I will have many more circles here and I will have the joining lines. As a matter of fact, each of these concepts may in turn will also be related to many more concepts. So finally you are going to be led to a diagram which has a number of concepts which are interlinked to one another, and some concepts may even be related to some other concept. So there could be a relationship like this as well. A concept can be connected to more than one concepts and it can actually become a very complex diagram. While drawing concept maps, you may have to draw that diagram and develop it further 3-4 times to make sure that you are getting the best representation of the subject that you are talking about. Let's now look at the slides. When and where were concept maps actually developed? Concept maps were developed by Professor Joseph Novak in the Cornell University in the 1960s. He used this idea to link a number of concepts and to try and represent a subject or a particular topic. Concept maps could be a very powerful tool for technical writers. So what would a technical writer do? Let's say you are trying to study a new subject that you don't know much about. So you talk to the subject matter expert, then you make notes of what you want. From these notes you can actually prepare a number of concept maps. There are different types of concept maps that one can make, and we will talk about each of them in detail. You can draw a different number of concept maps to make sure that your understanding of the subject is good. Concept maps can be used as a tool to memorize what you are learning. In fact, they go very close to the neural networks of a human brain. So concept maps render themselves very easily to memory. It becomes extremely easy to understand a subject from a concept map. In a few cases, I would suggest that you can actually draw a good concept map using different colors and so on and include it in the document that you are giving to the users. Even the users can find concept maps very useful. So we'll talk about some of the concept maps that a technical writer can use as we go ahead. Let's go ahead to the next slide right now. Let's talk about some of the advantages of concept maps. As you have seen, concept maps are visuals, so they render themselves easily to be understood and to be remembered by a human brain. Concept maps make minimum use of text and maximum use of visuals. So the diagrammatic representation can very clearly bring out the relationship between various concepts and the links. This can help you to identify not just the entire subject, but even lead you to the different representations of the subject considering the audience. The diagrammatic representation actually leads you to creative thinking. When you look at the diagram, then you can easily identify the part of that diagram which needs to be developed further. That can actually give you a hint about what is that you need to study more, or in what area can you develop your knowledge a little bit further. Those are the areas for improvement. Let's go to the next slide. Where can concept maps be used? Let's focus on the slide. Concept maps can be used for understanding any subject or any domain of knowledge. Concept maps can be used to explain the subject to students or to users. Concept map is an effective tool for transferring knowledge about a particular product or a service. Concept maps can be used by technical writers to develop, let's say, site map of a website, to develop contents of an article or maybe a user guide, or even to develop structure of an online help. Let's go to the next slide. Let's quickly take a look at the different types of concept maps. First is the spider concept map. Then we have the hierarchy concept map. Then we have the flowchart concept map. And finally we have the system concept map. Let's draw each one of them on the board here and then look at them together. Let's look at the 4 types of concept maps that we just mentioned. We have got spider, then we have got hierarchy, we have got flowchart, and then we have got system. Spider concept maps are useful for linking various concepts to each other and to understand the overall organization of a particular topic, or let's say a new domain. Hierarchy concept map could be very useful to understand the hierarchy of different entities. A hierarchy concept map, let's say, can be used to understand the organizational structure of a company, or even to understand the functionality or menu of a particular product. In software documentation, you can use a hierarchy concept map to draw the various menus and understand how the menus and submenus are grouped together. We use the flowchart concept map to understand the process or the logic of following a particular process. Various steps in the process are indicated in the flowchart concept map. You know which step comes first, and then which step comes after that, and then what all steps that step can lead to, and finally can it go back in the process and how does the process end. Typically, if you are talking about flowchart concept maps, then you actually use some specific representations for the various steps. If you have drawn flowcharts earlier, you would know that there is a different indication for the first and the last step. There is a different indication for a looping step. There is a different indication for a decision making step, which we call as a decision box, and so on. So that becomes specialization of this concept map, using definite symbols to standardize it, let's say, across the industry. Let's go to the system concept map. In a system concept map, you try to identify different components of a system. Typically, if you are talking about a system, you could be talking about the input, the process, and the output. So let's look at the system concept map on the board. Here, the system concept map actually shows you the input that is going to the process and the output that the process is going to give you. You might even mention the conditions over here in which the process actually happens. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some of the concept maps that I have drawn for you. So I want you to focus on the slides, see how these concept maps are drawn, and try and appreciate the links between them. First, let's start with the spider concept map. So over to the slide. Let's look at the spider concept map that I have drawn here for you. This is the concept map of cricket. I'm sure this topic would be interesting to all of you. So let's look at the concept map on the slide. As you can see, I have placed cricket in the center. Around that, I have put the other concepts, namely test cricket, first class cricket, limited overs cricket, and amateur cricket. In test cricket, I have again connected to many other concepts like series of nations, Ashes series, Border Gavaskar Trophy, Frank Worrell Cup, and so on. First class cricket, I have connected further to English County, the Sheffield Shield, Ranji Trophy, Dulip Trophy, and so on. Limited over cricket, I have further divided them into one-day cricket, 2020 cricket, and six-a-side cricket. In one day, you have got the World Triangular Series, you have got the Sharjah tournament, of course you have got the World Cup, the ICC Cup, and series of nations. I am sure you can read the rest of it yourself. So this is typically a spider concept map. Just one look at the spider concept map and you start understanding and differentiating between some of the very confusing words. For example, if you look at this particular concept map, you would know that there is a World Cup in 2020 matches as well as the one-day matches. So a concept map can give you a snapshot of a particular subject. However, it's important to remember that a concept map could actually be drawn with respect to a particular user. So the user's perspective becomes your point of view. Now here, when we are talking about cricket, spider concept map of cricket, then we are looking from a generic perspective. If you try to draw the same concept map from the perspective of a cricketer or an audience or an umpire, maybe the concept map will slightly be different. So depending on the perspective that you are taking, the concept map can change. As a learner, you could be looking at a different concept map. As an expert user or as an let's say intermediate user or an expert user, the concept map will look radically different. Actually, in your mind, the concept map will go on developing. As you know more and more about the subject, the blocks will fall in place and now your concept map will be much more refined and clearer to understand. Let's go to the next type of concept map, which is a hierarchy concept map. So we'll go to the next slide. A hierarchy concept map has the main concept at the top. Below that you have got the sub-concepts, and then you further go into the more details of the sub-concepts. So there could be sub-concepts and so on and so forth. In a hierarchy concept map, instead of putting the balloons all around the main concept, you typically go from top to bottom. That helps you to understand the structure of the entire subject. So if you look at the slide that I have drawn for you, this is the hierarchy concept map of the world. As you can see on the slide, world has been divided into America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Oceania and the Antarctica. In America you have got North America and South America. In Europe you have got East Europe, Scandinavia and West Europe. In Asia you have got Gulf, South Asia, East Asia and so on. Now I can go down further and then identify the actual countries. If I go down within the countries, I can reach the states or even the cities. Obviously that's going to be a much more complicated concept map, but it gives you an order, so it becomes easier for a user to locate a particular topic in this concept map and also immediately identify how a user can explain or reach that particular topic logically. Let's go to the next slide. Let's talk about the flowchart concept map. Now I have drawn a concept map which could be interesting to each one of you, which is getting married. Simple to understand. Now I have not used the conventional blocks of a flowchart for representing the blocks in this particular flowchart. The reason for that is we are understanding this as only a concept map, and in this session we are not discussing about the legend used for drawing a flowchart. So let's focus our attention on the slide and let's see what we have there. So first step is register yourself at shadi.com or any other website you may want, bharatmatrimony.com for example. Search for profiles of suitable candidates with photos. Do you find the candidate suitable? If yes, propose to the candidate. If the proposal is accepted, then you go ahead and get married. If the candidate is not suitable or if the proposal is not accepted, then you will have to go back and search for more candidates. As simple as that. Let's go to the next slide. Let's talk about the system concept maps. System concept maps also try to identify the inputs to the system, the outputs of the system, the process and the conditions of the system. Let's look at the example that I have drawn for you. As you can see on the slide, I have drawn the diagram of a ticket booking system for you. So let's focus our attention on the slide. In the inputs, you have got the date of journey, starting point and destination, names of passengers, and of course the money. The process consists of the ticketing process, which is subject to availability of ticketing staff and availability of seats. So these are our conditions: ticketing staff and availability of seats. The output of the system is the desired tickets that you wanted. We already talked about brainstorming and concept maps. Let's do a quick comparison of concept maps and brainstorming. Let's look at the slide. Concept maps can be very personalized, whereas the final output of brainstorming is accumulation of all the participants' thoughts, ideas and experiences. Let's go to the next slide and the next point. Concept mapping evolves based on logical thinking, whereas brainstorming is not necessarily supposed to follow logical thinking. In fact, in brainstorming many times we follow random thinking or illogical thinking, or I would say even out of the box thinking. Sounds cliche, but yes, out of the box thinking is very important for brainstorming. Let's go to the next point of comparison. Concept maps tries to identify the different concepts and the links between those concepts, whereas brainstorming essentially looks at getting maximum ideas or maximum options on the table. We may not really link one option to the other. In fact, many options could actually be discarded during the decision making phase. But the idea behind brainstorming is to put all the options on the tables. Subsequently, when we go to analysis, we are going to look at the importance, practicality and cost, let's say, of all the options, and based on that we are going to take a decision. At the end of brainstorming, we may not be going in for all the options, whereas a concept map actually tries to link all the concepts together and structure them and present them in the most refined format. Let's go to the next point of the comparison. This is a very interesting point, I would say. Concept mapping can be used as a tool during brainstorming. At the same time, brainstorming can actually lead to concept maps. So both the tools can be used to strengthen each other's. Let's go ahead to the next slide. We'll end this session with an exercise. The exercise is to draw the concept map of the functionality of a mobile phone that you could be having, or anybody else around you could be having, maybe your friend, maybe one of your family members. It doesn't stop at that. After you have drawn the concept map, you have to work on the concept map and think whether you could actually improve the functionality of the mobile phone itself by modifying, rearranging or adding or deleting some of the concepts. Finally, you'll also have to think whether you can insert the concept map that you have drawn in the user guide of that mobile phone, and if yes, where and why. Why would you insert it in that particular location? After you have done this, mail this to me. You know my mail ID, it's mp@vsnl.com. That brings us to the end of this session. Thank you.